Welcome to CTV News. I'm Rob Cope-Williams. Canterbury Tourism has been given a funding boost to help bring people back to the region.
After the September earthquake, tourism in Canterbury took a huge dive. Now with the city closed and images of a broken city beamed around the world, tourism is continuing to decline.
Well, it's been pretty big. Clearly those images broadcast around the world have had quite an impact on people's travel decisions. So over the last 2 months, March and April, we've seen arrivals into Christchurch Airport down about 30%. But we're seeing a much worse effect in terms of the number of visitors that are actually in the city. A lot of those people flying in are just getting in a rental car or a car and going straight out. So they're certainly getting a holiday in the South Island, but we're not seeing quite as many in the city. So if you run a tourism business in Canterbury, business has been down for anything up to 50 to 70% over the last few months. So it's pretty tough.
Prime Minister John Key has recognised the severe impact on Canterbury tourism by the February earthquake with a funding boost. The Ministry of Economic Development, Christchurch City Council and Christchurch International Airport have entered into a memorandum of understanding to help Christchurch and Canterbury tourism.
As a result of the earthquake, our organisation, Christchurch and Canterbury Tourism, took quite a hit, mainly because we've lost our visitor centre in the square, which was a huge producer of revenue for us as a business. And also because it really did impinge on the investment that we had from business partners who are tourism operators in the Canterbury region. So what we have is 3 organisations have pitched in to help us out, and those are the Christchurch City Council, the Ministry of Economic Development and Christchurch International Airport, and that's provided us with around $1.6 million that we can invest over the next 12 months on recovery work to get those tourists back into the city.
The funding is for $1.6 million and is additional to core council funding of $2.2 million. Prime Minister Key says the funding is designed to help Christchurch and Canterbury tourism stabilise its business and operations and rebuild existing tourism and travel activity. Tim says the funding will help immensely.
Well, I think there's a couple of things we need to do. We really need to get the record straight, particularly internationally, that the entire city is not broken. For all of us that live here, we know damn well that half the city's in pretty good shape. Yes, we don't have a central city, so we've lost that sort of cultural and heritage experience, but we have a lot of tourism activities that are up and running. We've got about 26 at the moment. And most of our iconic ones are back in action. So it's really important that we tell people, particularly overseas, that it's okay to come to Christchurch, to use Christchurch Airport, stay at least a night before you head off around the South Island, and then we'll get some of those visitors back in and spending some money in our economy.
And he says he sees a positive future for Canterbury tourism, with plans for campaigns to draw people back.
Well, a lot of the jewels around us in Canterbury are fine. It's perfectly normal tourism industry operating out there. It's simply a lack of visitors. We've just got to get the confidence back that people will come into the South Island and use Christchurch as the hub that they've always used, for their Canterbury or their South Island holiday. So we are quite confident. This money will be really important in terms of all the communication we need to do overseas, both with travel sellers and with the media. And also this summer running some big campaigns. And one idea we have is a major South Island self-drive promotion, particularly in Australia, and get more Australians coming back here, using Christchurch as the gateway, but also enjoying the rest of the South Island.
Stress and vulnerability in the affected areas are still very real for those working at the coalface.
The Delta Community Trust is one group helping people.
Well, we provide a whole range of community services. So we've got a community development service that has a food bank, budget advice, community meals and cafe and various other things like a community garden. We have about 40 or so volunteers involved. We have our Evergreen Day program for elderly, and they're in our upstairs, and then we have our Delta Friendship Link, which provide a whole range of activities and friendship groups for people with disability. So we've got a manager of each division, and then they each have a couple of community workers with them. Immediately after the quakes, of course, our staff also were personally affected, and so in the first weeks it was sort of just cleaning up, getting ourselves resorted, and also the emergency response from Civil Defence had kicked in, and a lot of people were getting help through that. So we were a little bit quiet to begin with, and then it's sort of, as people try and get back to normality after the initial clean-up, now we're seeing them needing that extra support, particularly the psychological support, just needing someone to talk to connect with people, to try and get daily routines going again so they can feel some normality. And our community meal and things after the February quake haven't been running yet, because we've got the Recovery Assistance Centre with Civil Defence here as well. However, our cafe has been quite highly attended as a point for connecting with people. Well, there are a lot of volunteers and groups going out into the local community. Like there's the Darlington Community Hub. I was talking to a lady there. They had volunteers coming from Avonhead even who were going out and door knocking. We've had chaplains here with the Civil Defence response who've been going out and talking to people and finding out what their needs are. But we also have heard lots of stories about people that, particularly elderly, who are just sort of holding up at home and thinking, oh, there's such a large amount of work that needs doing, I won't bother asking for help. And we do know that there are people out there that do need more support. So we hope to be able to get out to them in the near future. And I think we're seeing people are getting tired, having been hit twice, particularly Riverside Road near us in Richmond. They got hit hard in September, and now they've been hit again. And for those people, it's really wears down the energy. So I think we've got a long way to go yet, and particularly with winter hitting and seemingly quite early, it's quite cold already. People are going to struggle, I think, and we need to have hope. We need to have a community plan of how we're moving forward in the near future, but also for the full recovery. And people, I think, at the moment can't see that hope, that plan yet.
Those who call into the centre have a wide range of options.
Like we have a cafe that's open 3 days a week. We have a community meal that's on every Friday. We have a food bank that's available 3 days a week. A budget advisor, a cultural worker. We have many particularly refugees in the area, and we have various empowerment courses that we offer throughout the year. Some of our services stopped a little bit. We began to operate as a drop-in 5 days a week rather than 3 days a week. That was the first change. We offered free food and drink for the first 3 weeks, and then it's just for a donation. We've had various volunteers in to actually provide meals and cook soups, etc., which is still ongoing. We've got another group starting to do that 2 days a week from next week. And as Tim had said, we've had chaplains in here and other volunteers just to meet and talk with people who come in and have been feeling very fragile and nervous, as we all are. It's something. Whereas the first earthquake mainly affected our clients, this earthquake has certainly affected all the staff as well. We've been involved this time with our houses in a bad way, and so we've had to manage ourselves as well as the clients coming in, because we realise this is a real long-term situation that we're in, with the winter coming up and the issues about insurance for people and uncertainty about where they live. But because it's also applied to the staff, we've had some compassionate leave that we've arranged for each other so that we're fresh and able to really be here for people in the months and years to come, really.
Coming up after the break, we take a look at property markets. Welcome back. Residential sales in Christchurch are starting to show some movement.
Okay, she's challenging. There's no surprises in that. The volumes are slow. You could say at one level they're tiny. Sales volumes for March were less than 200 sales in our city. And, you know, I'm a 17-year veteran of real estate. I've seen some huge years. I certainly haven't seen them as low as this, but I am very hopeful that they will quietly recover.
Although it may appear to be quiet on the real estate front, people are working out their options.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people who want solutions to their housing issues or problems. They want a property, and there are other people who want to leave the city. So between some of those folk, we're finding that homes are still being sold. Still being sold. They're approaching for information. There's a huge need for people just to get information. There seems to be, they're talking to every man and sundry, and we're just one of those. Your real estate professionals, just one of those people. People that have got issues with their land may not be ready to sell at the moment, but they certainly want to know where they stand and what's happening in the market. And so we are dealing with that. We have amongst our offices a couple of businesses on the east side of town, so we get quite a bit of inquiry from people who are saying, my home is damaged, I'm not sure about my land, what's going to happen in the future. So we're talking to those people. Some of the cases are very individual, though. You wouldn't want to make a blanket statement about a whole area.
While some people want to leave Christchurch, there are others who want to move here.
There is the expectation of an awful lot of work here in Christchurch, so there are early inquiries tending to look more for rental properties than homes at this stage, but that could easily convert across to property purchases. So yes, there are people coming to town.
Farmers on small holdings often have troubles with their marketing. However, the hazelnut growers have got around all that.
Basically there was a group of growers got together in the late 1990s and got together to get a company underway to process their nuts. Before that, Lincoln had been doing quite a bit of research in the late 80s, early 90s, and that certainly helped. The White Heart, which is the main variety here and the main variety of hazelnut in New Zealand, was basically developed at Lincoln from selections.
And what about yourself? You came into it fairly recently as well.
Yes, I've only been here since 2003. We sort of came in after it was all started up, and we were looking for basically a retirement project, and now we're sort of a bit busier than
busier than you thought. Tell me a bit about the management of the trees, because a lot of people will be looking at it for a retirement purpose.
I've found it less work than I expected. They sucker like mad. That's probably the worst thing about them. And if you can see in the background at the base of the tree, they certainly sucker. We've got 6,000 trees here, and when we had about 4,000, we were trimming them all by hand, secateurs. We've found long loppers a lot better now, but once we moved on to the 6,000 trees, we've moved on to chemical spraying, but we are looking at going back to the loppers to go more not totally organic, but try and get as organic as possible.
I notice there's irrigation.
Yes, here we're on very light soils. Our soil depth would be about a spade depth, and then we're into river gravels, so they certainly need quite a bit of water in the summer.
Anything else that has to happen? Do you fertigate them at all?
We put a bit of fertiliser on, and we spread all the shell from the factory. It gets recycled back onto the ground.
So I was going to ask you about that, because obviously it is used as a sort of a recycled mulch.
Yes, it breaks down over time. You might be able to see the chips on the ground, but basically, we purchase it from the factory and recycle it here.
The process? Once you get the nuts into the sacks?
It's basically they drop off the tree there. That should happen in the next month. They're just tailing off now and starting to mature in the husk, and should start dropping in about 3 weeks. We generally will wait till into April and get them up off the ground as quick as we can. We put them into onion sacks once they're sorted, and make sure they get plenty of airflow to get the moisture content down as quick as we can, and then store them.
Obviously this time of year you are cracking the odd one.
Yeah, we crack all year round. For the processors, they want nuts 52 weeks of the year, so we've got to make sure that the factory can run continually through the year and not run out. In the past, we were always waiting for the new season's nuts. In the last season, we've just suddenly had double the production or double the number of nuts coming into the factory, and that's created a few marketing issues. So yes, we're just
sorting that out,
and yeah, very patient growers waiting their checks.
But they will come.
Yes.
Now, obviously you've got a mechanical cracker.
Yes, it was manufactured in New Zealand at Waiau by Eastman Engineering. He actually also runs a hazelnut nursery, and the trees in this orchard came from that nursery. A big cracker weighs approximately 3.5 tonne and can crack about 150 kilograms an hour at the moment.
Then onto a conveyor belt and some very hands-on sorting.
Yes, very labour intensive. Every grower's nuts seem to crack differently. Different ones will have more shell on the table. Other ones you'll sit there and watch them go by, and we can crack the machine up a bit faster.
Then what happens? Because obviously they're being graded as well, Alan?
They get graded at the sorter at the end into halves, pieces, smalls, and into whole kernel. And from then we put them in a bin, and from the bin decide whether we're going to roast this line or whether it goes out as a raw line. The quality depends on whether it goes out for processing or as a raw nut to eat. We generally roast the bigger nut because find the pellicle skin comes off and they blanch a lot easier than the smaller ones.
And obviously your market is everything from delicious chocolates through to pastes and oils.
Yes, we've just got into the oils and pastes. Chocolate makers, most of the handmade chocolate makers in New Zealand we're supplying, and we're trying to interest the ones we aren't. They are some of our biggest customers: Van H Chocolates, Dispar, Rosy Glow, Shock Chocolates, Bulrush, Devonport Chocolates in Auckland.
All the niche ones?
Yes, yeah, all sort of the handmade market. We have talked to Whittaker's, but can't match the price there at the moment.
Speaking of prices,
volume.
the price, obviously there's very cheap imported nuts, but your quality will win through.
Yes, Turkish nuts come into the country around $10, even under $10 a kilogram. Quality issues, we do have a supplier that uses both Turkish nut but use our product in their top product, just because of the quality. In between we've got the American nuts from Oregon district. They come into the country at about $14. We're paying the grower $10, or aim to pay the grower $10 a kilogram for the kernel. So by the time we process it, we've got to be getting up around the $20 mark to make ends meet.
For somebody with a small block or a corner of a property that they don't know what to do with, is there money in it? I mean, what's the arithmetic?
Certainly not a big money spinner, but it's sort of, for a small block, it's a lifestyle thing, something you need to like getting outdoors and working on it. Basically, if someone comes along to me, I say it'll pay your rates and give you a holiday in New Zealand or Australia, but the world holiday might have to wait for.
But the actual work that needs to go into them is not all that great.
No, harvesting's probably one of the big issues. A lot of people have the suckers, and basically keeping the ground clean. If you go fully organic, then there's other issues, and how you're going to get them up off the ground.
Exporting.
At this stage, we basically aren't in the export market, but in saying that, we do have a clientele of Chinese customers in Australia that love our roasted product, and in the last 5 months, probably 10% of our production has gone offshore to Australia. New Zealanders are missing out.
After the break, more health warnings for the upcoming winter. Welcome back to CTV News. Health experts are concerned for Canterburyans with winter just around the corner.
With winter just around the corner, health professionals are spreading all the regular winter health warnings. But this winter is different, with so many people struggling to heat quake-damaged homes.
Well, we're moving into winter now. It's getting colder. A lot of people are living in houses that are damaged or have drafts, and they're living with a lot more people. In many cases, some houses have got 2 or 3 families in there. So it's very important that we all look after each other. We keep an eye out for those elderly people on our streets who, 2-3 months on, they still need our support. We still need to make sure they're keeping themselves warm.
Immunisation Week is this week, and Dr Humphrey hopes the week will raise awareness of the importance of immunisation, particularly in Christchurch, where it will be a hard winter. Influenza expert Dr Lance Jennings says people need to be more aware of influenza this winter and says the best protection is immunisation.
My main concern obviously is influenza. New Zealand is affected by influenza epidemics annually, some more severe than others, and this season Canterbury, with the changed social circumstances, multiple families living in the single household, stress, children being bused across the city to schools, sharing classrooms, and all these things are going to enhance, I believe, the spread of influenza this weekend, this coming winter.
But he says people need to use their common sense and wash their hands and cover their mouths when they cough or sneeze. If you have any concerns, talk to your GP.
And finally, CTV is getting closer to being back on air full time.
Today, our new satellite dish went up, which will bring in news and programming from around the world. I went down and had a look to see what was going on. All right, Pete, so can you just tell us a bit about what's going on here?
Well, what we're endeavouring to do at the moment is to put up a satellite dish to get AsiaSat 3, and from AsiaSat 3 we get our news, Al Jazeera and DW, and a lot of the favourite programmes, Euromax and Arts Unlimited and Today, Tomorrow, all those different programs which we've broadcast in the past.
The satellite dish is a huge step towards getting Canterbury TV up and running again, with our previous satellite destroyed with the building. It will bring us all our regular programming plus new items. And it almost didn't happen yesterday with a major setback.
Just got our north focus wrong, but we're right again today. We'll have it all up and running shortly.
So when do you hope to have it up and running?
Hopefully by mid-afternoon we should be into gear and be able to record from the satellite from that point.
Keep watching CTV to see what our satellite dish brings us, including popular international news channels Al Jazeera and DW News.
Well done, boys. That's CTV News. I'm Rob Cope-Williams.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.